Hello YouTube, this is Logan Film Studios with LEGO Transformers Starscreech. So Starscreech here is my build for the Allspark Assembly Challenge for Transformer builders. And this month, the theme is Alt Mode Swap, which is when you take an existing character and change what they turn into. So this build is G1 Starscream if he turned into an eagle, which I think is an interesting idea because his original G1 jet was an F-15 Eagle. So you'll see this build follows all the same color cues as the original G1 Starscream, with the white on the top, the red on the bottom, he's got the red stripes, and he's got the blue and red on the tail, which kind of represents the colors that are on the fins on the back of the jet. The head is orange, which obviously represents the cockpit on the jet, and you see the legs are blue, which will become a little bit more relevant in the robot mode. So yeah, the only color that isn't on the original Starscream is the yellow for the beak, and I think that was just kind of a necessary color for getting it to look like an eagle. When I straighten out the wings, you can start to see how much of a gigantic wingspan he has, and that's pretty accurate to that of an eagle. And you can see that the feathers themselves are inspired by the design from IXRolloutIX, where each individual feather is attached with these 1x2 and 1x1 plates with the handles on the end and these clips, and that allows them to each individually articulate, which I think is really cool. And this is a similar style of feather that I used for the tail feathers in order to remain consistent throughout the build. And yeah, I'm pretty proud of this design. I think it's really what makes this whole thing work. The legs are pretty simple. They just stick out of the body from the center right here. They have the 3 claws in the front and what would be kind of a 3rd claw in the back, but because of the robot mode, this is obviously kind of a robot mode hand, spoiler alert. But I think it does a decent job of making it look like the claws of an eagle. The legs themselves are a little bit too far forward, but that's just had to be that way because of how it transforms, which you'll see later. In eagle mode, Starscreech is actually pretty well articulated. He has these ball joints on the wings, which allow them to go up and down like this. They can kind of bend forward and pretty much go wherever. And he has this hinge here, which allows the wings to bend in this way, which makes them look like they can be flapping like this or kind of bending in this way. And then, as I mentioned before, each of the feathers on the wing is individually articulated with this clip here, so they can go forward and back like this, and they can also rotate, which is a little bit more relevant in the transformation than it is for this mode. The tail is on 2 sets of ball joints, so they can move up and down at these 2 points. But if you try and get them to like rotate or anything else, and they'll break up and it doesn't look very good. The head is able to move up and down pretty simply, and this panel here is able to kind of move with the head to make sure that it does not break the sculpt. But you have to be careful because when the head moves, the robot head here will want to move, so you just want to kind of push it back into place whenever you're going to move it. And then I guess the beak can technically move a little bit, but that's more for transformation than anything. The legs have a ball joint at the base here, which allows them to kind of go outward and forward and back just a little bit and rotate. They have a hinge here, which allows them to kind of bend backward. They have a clip hinge here, so they can go side to side. They can rotate on stud friction. And then each claw articulates individually on these clips. For size comparisons, here is Starscreech next to Bumblebee, and here he is next to a minifigure. And just by looking at these compared to each other, you can definitely see how ridiculously big the wingspan of Starscreech is. It's honestly hard to keep in frame. Because Starscreech is a variant of Starscream, I decided to build his iconic null ray blasters, which can peg in front of his wings, very similarly to how they are on the G1 jet. And yeah, so they're able to kind of rotate with the wings to change their angle, and I think it's a pretty cool look for this. You can also rotate the brackets on the null rays like this, and then peg them in to his hands and kind of close up the hands like this, and make it look like he's carrying them into battle, which is kind of interesting as well, if you don't like the bird with guns on him look. So that's pretty much it for Starscreech's Eagle mode. It's pretty clean, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. So without further ado, let's get to the transformation. So here's Starscreech in his robot mode, and as you can see, he's designed to look just like G1 Starscream. Everything from the orange chest cockpit area to the red stripes on the wings and the blue forearms and feet, they all emulate the color scheme and design that is on the original G1 Starscream. I love how the feathers in the wings are able to rotate and then become this more solid wing here that looks more like the plain wing that Starscream would have. On the back of the wing, I decided not to make these sections rotate because I thought that made the transformation a little bit too tedious, and I kind of like how these sections still kind of emulate the bird aspect of the design, because overall you can't really tell that this turns into a bird. Another thing that I love about this is that there's virtually no kibble. Like, this section here has to stick out a little bit because it hides the beak that's in there. But other than that, and the feather sections I mentioned a second ago, it's very clean overall. Getting a closer look at some of the details, the head here is a simple Travis brick with some tiles on every side, but I think that does an okay job of replicating Starscream's head at this scale. He has these shoulder sections here, which are kind of, I think they're air intakes on the G1 plane, but here they're just kind of the sides of the body that slope inward. He has these indented sections on his torso, which are kind of an iconic design feature for him. And then the white that separates the top of the body with the lower body. And you can see here he has a pretty accurate like waist design. And then coming down to the legs, they're a little bit less clean than they are on the original design, but they have, you know, the blue section that pokes out, which is on the G1 it's kind of more like here, but I think having it here is okay. He has the blue feet, and he has these sections which are kind of like the fins of the plane that fold up on the side of his feet, but here they serve more as heel spurs. And then on the G1 version there would be a thruster here, but obviously there's not going to be one of those on the Eagle. For articulation, Starscreech can rotate his head side to side and move it up and down. His wings can articulate on the ball joint like they did before in order to move out of the way of the arms. The arms can't really go side to side, well they can go like inward like this, but not outward. But they can rotate forward and back. And the nose right here has a swivel which allows it to get out of the way of the arm because the claw in the back of the forearm kind of juts up against that. The legs are fairly simple. They just have ball joints here which allow them to go forward and back. They can go in and out and rotate. And then they have a ball joint at the knee which allows them to go bending this far, which is not super far because they're hindered by the plates that are here, but they can also rotate, which is kind of cool. The foot can pivot forward and back, and so can the heel spur, which helps it to stand. For size comparisons, here is Starscreech next to Bumblebee, and here he is next to a minifigure. That's about it for LEGO Transformers Starscreech. Be sure to check out the other alt mode swap builds people have done for the Allspark Assembly, and I challenge you, the viewer, to try your own alt mode swap. They're really fun to do. I'll be leaving the links to the other builders' videos in the video description below, and I'll see you guys next time with my next LEGO Transformer.